Eric and his co-founder, TJ, started a multimedia and internet company in 1994 called Pixel Media. Back then, many still considered the internet a fad and questioned its value. Agencies were producing CD-ROMs for clients. Do you remember, Eric, building CD-ROMs? Do our students even know what a CD-ROM is? We met not long after, sharing our love for emerging technology and how it could be used as a powerful tool for our clients. Pixel Media quickly became a powerhouse in the region, working with top-name brands. In 2020, Pixel Media and two other like-minded companies joined forces to build a complete commerce solution for Salesforce. Rafter One was born with Eric as its CEO. In addition to Eric's many successes as a business and industry leader, Eric has contributed much to the regional ecosystem as well, in ways small and large. I recall many years ago, I called upon Eric to sponsor a t-shirt for a small fundraiser. He said yes before I even finished the pitch. There are so many examples like this. I'm actually struggling to remember which nonprofit it was, but I'm pretty sure it was WSEA Community Radio. And Paul, there you go. That's a plug for you. Eric and Pixel Media are frequent sponsors and supporters of area chamber events, the E-Coast networking events, and more. Do you remember the E-Coast as well? We go way back. Eric was a founding board member for 3S Art Space, on the board of Optima Bank, and currently a UNH Paul College Advisory Board member. Please join me in congratulating Eric.
Josh, I could have sent more bullet points if I knew that's what you were asking me for. So this is just, every time Josh says something, so first of all, I only call him Andy Beaupre, because when Josh says Andre, I chuckle a bit. But yeah, I've known Andy for a long time. And Andy wrote a book on a lot of this, so my words might be quite a bit different than his, but thanks, Andy, for what you shared. And just real quick, Andy and I, our businesses, we actually started in the same location in Portsmouth at 208 Market Street. He started, I don't know, in maybe late 80s, 90s? No. Okay, so, but we came along after and literally started in the same building. I had a little radio show for a while at WSCA Radio, and we interviewed Andy. It was one of the very first interviews. If you Google Andy Beaupre, Pixel Media, Eric Dodier, you can watch this little interview we did. And that, I kind of call it, if in today's world, that would have been called a podcast. Back then, it was just called a radio interview. But thanks to Josh for inviting me to this. Really great honor. And my mom and dad are here. My mom, Judy, my wife, Rachel, my dad, Joe. My father was a bit of an entrepreneur. He had a shoe business down in Haverhill, Massachusetts. I worked for him many summers. One summer, I actually lived at the fraternity. He lived in Lee. He'd pick me up, and we'd drive down to Haverhill, and I worked on a die cutting machine. So I'd basically stand all day cutting big pieces of rubber into small pieces of rubber. I would never let my son do that in this day and age. You could cut my hand off in a split second. But, I remember thinking to myself, boy, I don't want to do this, all my life. And I think that lesson was sort of, all right, well, then get your education and go figure out what you want to do. So, and of course, my wife, I started Pixel Media in 1994. So for the last, 20 or so years, she's been shuttling the kids around and to sports and to school and all that. I've focused pretty much on running a business, being around UNH, being around Portsmouth, doing these things that Josh mentioned. So thank you to my wife, Rachel, and of course, my mom, who, has been the backbone. And there's nothing she wants to be doing more than sitting right here. I'm 53 years old, and this is where she wants to be, is here. So if she heard this happen and I didn't invite her, that would have been devastating. What can I say? I kind of jumped around a bit. So, and it's worthy to note, and my words are going to be a little briefer and more directed at the students, and less so of a unique problem, but more just a general philosophy that I just want to share. It's worth noting also. 1 year ago today, I have to just say this because it literally is to the exact day. I slipped on some steps at my house and broke my ankle. I mean, like really broke it in like two places. I got a plate. I got screws. I mean, the whole thing. And I mention that because it's kind of a bit around the philosophy that I want to share with the students. Events happen, and you guys deal with stuff every day, and I just saw some of these students earlier. But what I hope UNH instills in people as a sort of less of a problem, but a philosophy that I think if students take away, that's the fundamental of solving the problems that we face. And two things, and it's a bit about taking responsibility, not in a bad way, but being responsible and being accountable and taking ownership of what happens. I can tell you, slipping and breaking my ankle was a complete freak accident, but after it happened, I'm like, what did I do? How did I do that? I had put on some loose-fitting boots to go to my son's soccer game and never zipped them up, never. So I sort of owned it. I said, okay, I'll never do that again. In fact, I threw the boots away because I'm like, I couldn't even look at them for months. But in that process, so I started sort of looking into how I can heal my ankle faster and so forth. And I kind of got into all these other health-related things that I can do. And so I sort of tried to use that opportunity. I had a lot of downtime. So the lesson I wanted to share is one, you got to own and take responsibility, but there's a great power when you take responsibility because it sort of leaves you with this feeling that instead of things that are happening to you, they're kind of happening for you. And so it's a little subtle shift that lets you kind of take whatever situation's happening and kind of say, all right, how do I now use this, to go forward? And I met with these students earlier today, and they got a lot of energy, and they just got to keep taking steps forward. The other part is then that you then have the influence. You have the power to influence those next steps. Whatever next step you take is going to influence the next and the next. So if you put those two things together, that's kind of like a superpower, right? If you know you're responsible and can kind of own what happens and help shape it and then shape that future, then whatever problem comes along, because Andy pretty much named them all, and you should read his book, wherever you apply, you're going to have an outcome. So that's what I wanted to share. I'm not going to speak about any specific problem. I want to thank my parents for coming out and my wife, Rachel, and I see a lot of familiar faces here, so thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.